Have land acknowledgements gone too far? I've actually done a report on that years ago, but now more are talking about it in light of the Supreme Court's decision to grant Aboriginal title over fee simple property, that's private owned lands in Richmond, in the Cowichan Tribes versus Canada case. And today, I bring you an interview with One BC party leader Dallas Brody, her chief of staff Tim Thielman, who is also a seasoned Aboriginal lawyer or practiced as such, and also a BC conservative, David Williams. I interview all of them about a bill that Dallas Brody proposed in the legislature this past week. That bill is the Land Acknowledgement Prohibition Act that seeks to ban compelled land acknowledgements. And you can guess that added some spice in the legislature.
To introduce the Land Acknowledgement Prohibition Act. Land acknowledgements are the anthem of a suicidal nation. They're recited in classrooms, boardrooms, and before virtually every public event. They're repeated ritualistically to instill the belief that our country is illegitimate, that Canada has no right to exist, that our ancestors are evil, and our history must be abrogated. They tell our children that we stand on stolen land. This bill will make it unlawful for publicly funded institutions and their employees, such as teachers, to make or to compel others to make land acknowledgements that deny the sovereignty of the Crown over the lands of British Columbia, or that attribute collective guilt based on race, ancestry, or the historical actions of Canadian figures.
Does it surprise you to know that in light of 8 kilometers pretty much being deemed Aboriginal title in Richmond and all of that being under appeal, but the Cowichan tribe saying, no, we want far more than the 8 kilometers, despite it being private land in those areas? Does it surprise you that the proposed legislation from One BC, the Land Acknowledgement Prohibition Act, to have public servants, those who are funded by the people, not be doing compelled land acknowledgements, that was shut down not by the NDP, but by the BC Conservatives at large before first reading of the proposed legislation, which is extremely rare. It was a hard no from all but 5 of the members of the Legislative Assembly in British Columbia. Those 5 were, of course, Dallas Brody, the party's House Leader Tara Armstrong, Independent MLA Jordan Keeley, and from the BC Conservatives, only this duo, MLA Heather Moss, as well as Harman Bangu. That's all who were saying, let's at least hear what this bill has to say. Now, I'm going to interview Dallas Brody about what was in the bill, as well as her chief of staff, Tim Thielman, to better understand if there's any legal implications to doing land acknowledgements. And I'm also going to interview one of the BC Conservatives who said, no, we're going to stop this right now. That is Representative from Salmon Arm Shuswap, David Williams, to give you both sides of the story. But before I do, I want to bring something to your attention. Back in 2021, we all know there was widespread false claims of unmarked graves, and that's kicked off right here in British Columbia. So did the church burning sprees that followed. And that started from the Kamloops ban that claimed that they found 215 remains of children as young as 3 years old in unmarked graves. It was completely false. Not a single body has been produced. Where am I going with this? Well, it's all tied into this reconciliation overreach we're seeing. When that false claim came out, who did you see pressuring the city of Richmond to do land acknowledgements? It was none other than the Musqueam ban. A ban that also is trying to claim part of Richmond. And they were saying, you know what, you guys are not saying these land acknowledgements. And right here in black and white, the mayor of Richmond said that they could not, because they were in a court battle. Hence, it could have legal implications. Hence, that is the battle we are all now aware of, and that Richmond residents whose titles are at stake are just finding out about now. Now, I have all of the background on this, and I will continue to report on this as we find out more info at our special website called stopundrip.com. UNDRIP is the United Nations Declaration of Rights for Indigenous Peoples. It's an aspirational framework that British Columbia was the first jurisdiction in the world to adopt as law. So you want to find out about that and take action against it at stopundrip.com. But for now, let's hear what everybody had to say about why this bill got shut down, and let us know in the comments what you think should happen.
It's become a story that's being repeated every day. Children are forced to say this and acknowledge that they live on stolen land, and that they took things, and that their ancestors were bad, and that it's become an automatic requirement of a lot of schools, public events, meetings, and it's just gone on and on. And so the point is that we wanted to say, if you have a publicly funded event going on, you're going to be prohibited from doing this from now on.
Yeah, and you described it as being, when these mantras are happening, these acknowledgements, a sign of a suicidal nation. Can you explain that a little further?
Yes, when you constantly say that you are invalid, that the where you live and what you've done and what you've accomplished means nothing, and that basically you have taken things from other people, stolen it, and this is repeating a mantra that's grooming us into accepting the entire surrender of everything we've built. It is, and I knew this when this started happening 20 years ago, or when they started rolling these things out. I said, this is not good. We are basically, they're using this to get us to acquiesce into surrendering our land and our country to the Indigenous bands in this country. And they're doing this so that we get used to saying, yes, we're bad, we stole it, we took it, our ancestors were evil. And this is what children are learning now openly in school. And then this mantra is added on top. And to me, that's a form of suicide for our society, because this is leading nowhere except for down, down, down.
Now, Mr. Thielman, you have experience as a lawyer in Aboriginal law, and so I wanted to bring you on here as well to kind of ask you, what, if anything, is the legal implications of people reciting land acknowledgements now that we see what's happening in Richmond?
Yeah, well, fundamentally, these are humiliation rituals, and that's clear from the BC government's own school policies, which describe it as a goal of our education system to instill, quote, cultural humility in students. And so this is training students that Western civilization broadly, in Canada and British Columbia specifically, is illegitimate, that we should be humbled or ashamed of our past. And the legal implications of that are twofold. One, this is a reflection of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which basically says that all modern states are founded in sin. And in Article 26, it says that all of the lands that Indigenous peoples previously owned, occupied, used, or otherwise acquired should be either given back or should be paid for as compensation. And so that's the underlying philosophy that UNDRIP, this UN declaration, instills into modern nation states. In 2019, the NDP and the BC Liberal parties jointly made that domestic law here in British Columbia. That was John Rustad and David Eby. They both said, we're going to make this idea of giving all the land back or paying for it, the law in British Columbia.
One of the shocking things I think that some people saw was who voted down the bill before it went to first reading. There was only 5 MLAs, so not so shocking that obviously your House leader, your party's House leader, Tara Armstrong, voted in favor of it. Jordan Keeley, who serves as an independent, voted in favor of it. But only 2 BC Conservatives, that was Chilliwack Representative Heather Maws, as well as Abbotsford Langley's Harman Bangu. I'm going to get your opinion on what that means. And then we're actually going to bounce to some of my interview with BC Conservative MLA David Williams for a bit, and we'll come back to you. But what did you make about how little support for this proposed legislation was from the BC Conservatives?
I think there are two things in operation here. The first is the BC Conservatives don't want to lend any credibility to our party whatsoever. So that's sort of the political side of this, just the infighting, sort of to make sure that they don't give One BC any credit for anything. The second, more pernicious aspect of this is that there are the people in the BC Conservative Party are weak. This takes strength to do this. People don't understand the pressure that comes on you in that house is intense. It's very personal. It's actually intimidating, and you have to have fortitude and like a real spine to do what we did yesterday. I was very, very, very proud of Heather and Harman for finding the backbone to say enough's enough. Good on them. That was hard for them to do that. Believe me. And so I think that the Conservative Party is so conflicted over this. They don't know what to do, and they're lacking leadership from John on this issue. No one's leading. And, add to that their House leader, Alia Warbus, is all in on the reconciliation industry, and she's got a prominent position in that party. She's the House leader. We are being assailed by this nonstop message that we are bad people, that we are on stolen land, and this is not good for us. And it's having a negative impact on our whole province, just in terms of investment climate. So, but that I'm getting back to the bigger picture here. But I think that it's really these Conservatives are weak. That's all I can say, except for Heather and Harman, who stood up yesterday, which was incredible.
Like I said, I want to throw to Salmon Arms Shoe Shop MLA representative David Williams. He's got a different perspective on why he voted no. Let's hear from him now.
From my standpoint, it's a matter of free speech. And so I actually toyed with the idea back and forth. And you know what? I changed my mind probably at least 3 times, right? Because I knew that no matter how you voted, you're going to get emails. So that was irrelevant. But I actually strongly believe in free speech. And so I don't believe in prohibiting. First off, I don't believe in any prohibitions, right? Mm-hmm. Prohibitions don't work. When you actually prohibit something, people will try to do more of it. And so it'll actually have the opposite effect. So that was number one. But the main thing is because it really goes against free speech. And the fact is that we should not be prohibiting free speech. No, people should be able to say what they want. If you really have a problem with the land acknowledgement thing, it goes back to these are individual policies that are made up by municipalities or cities or organizations. You know what? Elect people in there that aren't going to implement these policies.
But there is that element of, well, wait a second here. There could be legal implications, and there's that compelled aspect. For example, if I'm a Christian teacher, I'm not able to do a land acknowledgement in accordance with the Bible that says the land and all the people and everything in it is the Lord's. I'm not able to do that. So how do you reconcile those concerns?
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. So you're right. They took the Lord's Prayer out of the schools, right? And again, but that was a policy issue made by government. So the thing is, but if we were to pass a bill like don't have reconciliation, the fact is, number one, it wouldn't stand up in court. So it would be, all it does is give them more traction to turn around and say, you know what, these people are compelling us to against our freedom of speech and all this stuff, right? And actually would have done, I think, less good. The fact is that we have to educate the public to realize, you know what, there's consequences in everything you do. The second thing is that I don't think that having a recognition per se is an absolute terrible thing. I think that, do I think it's overused? Absolutely, right? And I believe that you should really watch what you say.
Why not allow it to pass first reading? Why stop it before it even gets that far?
Yeah, and that's even the bigger question. So the thing is, generally, I would pass no matter what, and let it go to second reading. The only thing is between the back and forth between the NDP and 1BC, the thing is all they do is they just argue back and forth, and it's totally unproductive. And at the end of the day, the NDP would shoot it down anyways, right? And so basically, it gives both of them an opportunity to rail on each other, and that's it, right? And there really is no accomplishment at the end of the day because it's not going to go anywhere, right? So the thing is, like I can't speak for 1BC, but the fact is they got as much traction by putting the bill forward and actually going on the radio and TV and through social media to make people recognize that they don't believe that there should be land acknowledgements, or if there are land acknowledgements, they certainly should be reduced or not as applied as loosely as they are now. Also, the fact is that there is consequences to statements, right? I think that people should be, like right now, everybody will tell you there is no consequences to saying anything, right? Which is basically true, right? I always try to limit what I say for the fact is that words matter both ways. When you turn around and you say things and it's disrespectful, people are going to take it as disrespectful. On the same token, if you turn around and say unceded lands, then you're acknowledging that the lands have never been given up. I would never do that.
I know that the bill did have some provisions in there. It had some academic freedoms in there as far as doing it. And it said that you can do land acknowledgements, but you wanted it to be conformed with the truth, which is that BC has sovereignty. But there is still a question of, well, wait a second, we're making an actual law here saying that, in a certain situation that maybe the law didn't foresee, they can't go ahead and do a land acknowledgement as they please. So what do you say to that?
I think that's a feeble excuse that they're using to try and hang their hat on that hook. It seems like an intellectual way out for them. It's not that at all. The thing is, what these land acknowledgements have become compelled speech. It's not about free speech. These have become compelled speech. Long ago, we said the Lord's Prayer can't be said in the schools anymore. And when one teacher tried to do it once, she was taken to court and that was slammed and not allowed to do that. So I said to the press the other day, I said, so if there's free speech, then are we going to allow teachers to do everyday mantras about the importance of free enterprise? So like every day that they have to repeat over and over again, this is not free speech. And this is what they have been compelling this in schools. It's been compelled onto their email signatures, just like the pronouns have been. People are being pushed to the wall on this. And so they're just using that because it's an easy way out. This is not about free speech. There's nothing stopping these people from saying these things all day, everywhere they want, on social media, everywhere else. When they're in their personal lives, they can write it, they can say it. But when you're in a classroom, you can't compel everybody to say these things.
This bill specifically targets public servants who are paid by taxpayers, and that includes teachers. So I'm a parent. I know you both are parents. I'm pretty sure most parents don't want their taxes going to pay teachers to teach their kids that they should feel guilty about who they are because they're born from the wrong, lineage, that they should feel guilty about living in their own country.
So essentially, Mr. Williams said that basically this bill wasn't going to go anywhere anyways. The NDP was going to shoot it down, and there would be so much back and forth going on between 1BC and the NDP.
Of course, the NDP is going to vote it down, but the whole point of being in the legislature is that you signal to your constituents and the people in BC where you stand on important matters of serious public interest. These land acknowledgements, from everybody I know, it's driving them crazy. I have friends who are doctors now who say they spend sometimes upwards of 40 minutes at staff meetings. These are doctors who are supposed to be doing doctoring, doing land acknowledgements. It's taking up time in meetings, staff meetings, and even in the ledge, we have some MLAs who, before they say anything in the ledge, they do, maybe a 30-second land acknowledgement every time they stand up. And it's gotten to the point of absurdity. And so for Williams to say that that it's because there would be back and forth on. I mean, that's the whole point of the legislature. We're supposed to be hearing different points of view there and debating things. That's the whole purpose of a parliamentary system, and how it's, that excuse doesn't make any sense to me at all. I don't know. What do you think, Tim?
I completely agree, and I would add to that the purpose of first reading, so this was voted down by Conservatives and the NDP at first reading. The purpose of first reading of a bill, for those that don't know, is just to see what the intent of the bill is.
Right.
And it is a long-standing parliamentary tradition to vote it through first reading, regardless of whether you're going to agree with it or not. Okay? So it's highly, highly unusual to vote against any bill at first reading. It's only happened 3 times in BC since 2017. And so now the BC Conservatives are saying, so they haven't read the bill yet. They're saying, we're not even going to read a bill that would stop teachers from telling kids they live on stolen land. That's today's BC Conservative Party.
Drea Humphrey here with Rebel News, where we don't back down from bringing you the other side of the story, and that includes reporting on reconciliation overreach. If you appreciate the work that we do and want to help us be able to continue to do so, please consider taking action and donating what you can at stopundrip.com.